Yielding back, the chair now recognizes Ms. Waters for 5 minutes. Ms. Waters, you need to unmute.
There we are. Our Speaker, Nancy Pelosi, was, I think, perhaps the first in the negotiations to compromise. Yes, the House passed a $3.4 trillion, I believe it was, for the HEROES Act. The Republicans have been stuck on the total response in HEROES for only $1 trillion. And at this point, you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, perhaps a 2.2. And I'd like to ask Mr. Mnuchin, the Secretary, whether or not you have agreed or you support something in the neighborhood of 2.2 as a compromise from your position on $1 trillion.
I do not support 2.2 trillion, but what's more important is what is the breakdown in getting money to American workers, American families, kids, where we can agree on money. There is tremendous areas of agreement, and that's what we should be doing right away.
Oh, so what are those areas of agreement?
Oh, I believe there's enormous agreement on the PPP. I want to thank you and others. I think on a bipartisan basis, the committees here in the Senate have made improvements to the PPP going forward. I think there's an agreement on money for schools. There may be a difference as to what it is. There's an agreement on enhanced unemployment going forward. There may be a slight disagreement in what the amount is in calculation. I think there's been an agreement on direct payments, as I mentioned earlier. There was even an agreement on postal, which seems to have more excitement and more interest in the postal has ever had in the history of time. But there's plenty of areas of agreement where we may be differing on amount. But again, my strong...
If I may, your big disagreement is on city and state, is that right?
Again, it's...
Jordan keeps saying they have plenty of money, and
again,
I'm not so sure that's true.
Chair Waters, I want to be careful because I think it is hard to negotiate in a public agreement in a public way. But I would say we conceded, Chief Meadows and I, on behalf of the President, we had reviewed this with the President in an effort to get a deal done and get other things that are very important for the American public, even agreed to put more money on the table for cities and states. Unfortunately, Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi do not want to sit down at the negotiating table unless we publicly agree on a top line. My own opinion is we should go piece by piece in any area of the legislation we can agree on. We should have the House and the Senate pass.
On city and states, there has been some reference to police and fire. And there's a lot of discussion about the funding of police now. Don't you understand, for those people who are worried about the funding for police as this whole discussion takes place about defunding, that to the degree that you are not agreeing on city and state funding, that you are in essence defunding the police and the fire departments?
Now, let me be clear. We are not defunding the police or fire. We gave complete flexibility in the money that every state has. They can use that money right now to pay policemen, firemen, first responders instead of laying them off. Every single state has access to those funds. And as part of additional funding, we would be willing to provide more money.
Well, let me just say this. The cities in particular are using some of that money for rental assistance. Many of them had eviction moratoriums. Those moratoriums are over. We have not done anything for them in the federal government. As a matter of fact, The President of the United States, in one of his executive orders, did not give any support to rental assistance and threw it over to HUD and two of the other agencies to say, review this, take a look at this. And so cities are stepping up to the plate to the degree that they can. My city of LA, the county of LA, other cities are doing what they can to keep from putting people out on the sidewalk. So when you talk about the cities having money, you're talking about the cities having looking at what to do to take care of the heroes, the first responders, what to do and how to be of assistance to those who need rental assistance. So what do you think? That the cities and the states have unlimited monies to take care of everything that we're not taking care of? Did you know that the cities are using money to extend the moratoriums so that people are not put out on the street? Did you know that?
I did. And let me just say, after the market closes this afternoon, we'll be releasing specific information from the administration on the moratorium. I think you'll be quite pleased with the impact that it'll have. I would also say we did have bipartisan agreement about putting more money for rental assistance. Again, we may be differ on the amount, but I can say we've agreed with the Democrats on the idea of providing money for rental assistance. And yes, I know, as you know, I appreciate what's going on in Los Angeles.
Well, thank you so very much. And let me just say that on that rental assistance, and I'm very pleased that you support that, and there may be an agreement forthcoming. But let me just say we put $100 billion in there. And so if, the negotiations are, talking about, $5 billion, $10 billion less, I'm sure you can come together on that. But if you're talking about half of it instead of, 100 billion, that's going to be a problem. So I'm hopeful that you're able to move closer to the amount that we placed in the HEROES Act, because I'm absolutely worried about the children and the families and their ability to have a roof over their heads. So go back to the negotiating table. Would you be willing to call my speaker and say you want to go back to the negotiating table today?
I would publicly say I am willing to sit down at the negotiating table with the Speaker with no conditions whatsoever, anytime, other than I think the chair expects me here for a bit longer. But maybe even he would concede if the Speaker wanted to interrupt us to negotiate right now.
Absolutely.
Let me just say one thing. When we ran out of money at the PPP, what did we do? We came back to Congress on a bipartisan basis. More money was agreed to. So I happen to think the $100 billion is way too much. That's not what I think we need. But by the way, if we agree on money and we run out quickly, you are all still here for us to come back. So let's start spending money where we can agree to help the American people.
Well, I think you're right. There's an opportunity to always come back. It's harder in some cases, but if you don't start out too low, we won't have that problem. And so I'm so pleased that you're willing to go back. I asked her if you were willing to call her and say, let's get back. And I'm not concerned about the hours. I know you work long, hard hours, but this is the kind of thing that if negotiations take 24 hours a day, we got to get it done. The people are hurting. And we can't stimulate the economy unless we have money to spend. The only way to have money to spend is to put a stimulus package out there to supplement the unemployment so that when they get this money, they don't hold on to it. They put it right back into the economy. They spend the money. So you want to go back in and try to get back in as soon as possible, even today?
Can I tell her that you suggested I call her right after the hearing?
Yes.
Done. I will call her right after the hearing. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you very much. Thank you.